Hello, my name is Jenny, and I am a student of English literature. Today, I want to share my life story in London with you, along with my amazing experience with my fantastic teacher. This is a story of my language journey, how I overcame challenges, and how my passion for learning English brought me to a place of confidence. It was a beautiful summer day when I started my journey. I was traveling on a train, heading toward a new adventure in London. There were two women sitting across from me on the train. They were speaking in English, and though I couldn't understand much, I could tell they were having an interesting conversation. I was a beginner at English, and I didn't know many words, but I felt a strong desire to learn and communicate. Feeling a little nervous but determined, I decided to speak to them. I said a few words in basic English. To my surprise, they understood me. That moment filled me with happiness and confidence. I expressed that I wanted to learn English better. The women kindly shared that they were from England and had just come back from a conference. They were heading home, and we had a brief, 10-minute conversation. As the train approached my station, I had to say goodbye. But before we parted ways, the women gave me their contact details and invited me to visit them in England someday. I was thrilled by their kindness. That interaction stayed with me, and from that moment on, I promised myself to work even harder on my English. I spent the next 6 months practicing English every day. I translated texts, watched films in English, and did everything I could to immerse myself in the language. Over time, my English improved, and although it wasn't perfect, I was determined to keep going. I decided to move to London to study English and learn from native speakers. When I arrived in London, I joined an English language school. My first class was on a Monday, and I met my teacher and other students. My teacher was a young woman, and she was kind, humble, and very welcoming. We introduced ourselves to each other, and then the lesson began. The teacher asked us about our general knowledge of English, and we spoke briefly about our experiences with the language. She told us that she had a unique and effective method for teaching English. This method was simple yet powerful. We wouldn't be burdened with textbooks and memorization. Instead, we would learn by using English in our everyday lives. The idea was to practice speaking and communicating as much as possible, rather than getting stuck in grammar rules or textbook exercises. I was relieved by this approach, as I had always found textbooks confusing. The teacher explained that language is not just a tool for learning rules but a means of communication. To truly learn a language, you need to express your thoughts, ideas, and feelings with others. She emphasized that language is a tool for communication, and we should focus on using it in real-life situations. This was the foundation of her teaching method, and it resonated deeply with me. At the school, many students tried to memorize words and study grammar rules, but they rarely spoke the language. My teacher made it clear that while learning new words and grammar was important, the most crucial part of language learning was using those words in conversations. Practice, practice, and more practice were the key to becoming fluent. The first lesson was already an eye-opener. We spoke about our hobbies, interests, and what we liked to do in our free time. We practiced speaking in pairs or in small groups, which I found enjoyable. I was learning, but I was also having fun. The teaching method was effective and practical, and I could already see the difference it made in my confidence to speak. Chapter 2: How I Learned Vocabulary. On Tuesday, I went back to school, eager to continue learning. During the lesson, one of my classmates asked an interesting question: what's the best way to learn new words? This was a question that had been on my mind as well, and I was eager to hear the answer. Our teacher shared with us a valuable insight. She said that reading is the most effective way to learn new words. Statistically, people who read learn new vocabulary twice as fast as those who don't. She encouraged us to read for at least 30 minutes every day. I made a commitment to follow this advice and began reading every day. The teacher gave us some tips to get the most out of reading. First, it's essential to choose books or texts that are interesting to you. If you enjoy what you're reading, you're more likely to stick with it. It could be a fiction or non-fiction book, or even an article that sparks your interest. She stressed that reading something boring or difficult could frustrate you, especially if you don't understand many words. When reading, it's important to look up unfamiliar words in the dictionary. Understanding the meaning of the word will deepen your comprehension of the text. After you learn the meaning, you don't need to write the word down. It will naturally stick in your memory, and the next time you see that word, you will instantly recall its meaning. Reading also helps you understand how words are used in context. You can learn how words connect and how they're structured in sentences. This, in turn, improves your overall language skills. I found that reading became one of the most effective ways to expand my vocabulary and improve my understanding of grammar. Getting my first job in England. In addition to studying, I was also eager to find a part-time job to practice my English. After a few weeks at school, I learned from my classmates that the best place to find student jobs in England is the job centre. I decided to visit the job centre one afternoon after school. At the job centre, I asked the lady behind the counter what kind of jobs were available for students. She told me they had several options, including working as a cleaner or a waitress in a cafe. I mentioned that I had no experience in either of these jobs, but she reassured me that my English was good enough to work at a cafe. The training wouldn't be difficult, and I would have more opportunities to speak English in the cafe compared to being a cleaner. I was excited and ready to start this new chapter of my life. The lady told me I could start working on Thursday, and I was thrilled to begin my job in a cafe where I could practice speaking English with customers and colleagues. Improving my pronunciation. One day, a student from South Korea, who was a bit shy, shared a concern during our class. He was struggling with his pronunciation and wasn't sure how to improve it. He understood English very well, but he didn't speak much because he was afraid of making mistakes. He wanted to know if there was something he could do to sound more like a native speaker. Our teacher introduced a helpful technique called shadowing. Shadowing involves listening to a recording and repeating the words aloud, trying to imitate the speaker's pronunciation. It's similar to how children learn their first language by imitating their parents. This method helps you get used to the sounds and rhythms of the language. I found this technique very interesting. We practiced it in class, and I could already feel an improvement in my pronunciation. I also learned that shadowing is helpful when preparing for presentations or speeches, as it allows you to speak with more confidence. Thinking aloud, a new technique. During another class, we met a new student named Elizabeth from Italy. She spoke beautifully with perfect pronunciation, and the teacher was impressed. Elizabeth shared that she didn't attend school anymore and had learned English at home using the techniques taught by our teacher. One of the methods she used was thinking aloud, where you think in English and say your thoughts out loud. At first, it was difficult for Elizabeth because she was used to thinking in Italian. But with time, thinking in English became more natural for her, and her fluency improved dramatically. Inspired by Elizabeth's story, I decided to try thinking aloud as well. I started small by thinking simple sentences in English and saying them out loud. It felt strange at first, but as I practiced, I began to feel more confident. My English speaking skills started to improve quickly. Conclusion: my ongoing journey. I continued to learn English, using the techniques I learned from my teacher. Reading, shadowing, and thinking aloud became part of my daily routine, and I could see significant progress. I was no longer just learning words or grammar rules, I was communicating, expressing myself, and enjoying the process. In the end, my time in London was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. I learned not just the language but also how to live in an English-speaking environment. I found new friends, started my first job, and gained confidence in speaking English. Tips for learning English effectively. Read for at least 30 minutes every day. Shadow native speakers to improve pronunciation. Think aloud in English to improve speaking fluency. Use English in daily conversations to practice and reinforce what you've learned. By following these methods, I was able to overcome my fear of speaking English and achieve fluency. I hope this story inspires you on your own language learning journey. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with others who want to improve their English. Keep practicing, and together we'll get better every day.